get this thing going. So check it out, Navin. Man, it's great for us to have this conversation because it's very rare because we really share something special in common by us getting the opportunity to go to a school that I was going to use the word is, but now was remarkable and life changing to us. So I want to start this conversation kind of just reflecting on that real quick. So you were there. Oh, and for the viewers that don't know, so him and I, we both attended a boarding school by the name of Orem. It's located, shoot, an hour north in the middle of nowhere in Arizona, man, on like a 40,000 acre ranch, which is an experience within itself. Oh, man, but it taught us so much. So you were there, you got there like kind of like a little bit after I left. I was a graduate class of 2001. What year were you?
I graduated 2013, I think freshman year, so
So oh 09,
or 2010 actually would have been. Yeah, technically.
2010. Were you ever there when because I would come back a few times, like right after college.
Yeah, you came back. I want to say definitely once, maybe even twice. And it was during football season. You had to come back, and yeah, they had rolled out that red carpet for you. You know, Jabari, the one and only. So
Sweet,
yeah,
sweet, sweet. So I probably, yeah. So I know I chopped it up with you then, man. That's funny how like now you're a full-fledged adult doing big things, and back then you probably was a little snotty-nosed kid. I was like, who the fuck is this kid asking me all these damn questions? But what are some of the I'm big off of principles, right? You know, and life lessons, the things that you learn. If you can kind of share with us, like, what are some of the most valuable life lessons or principles that you learned from being at the school that you apply now?
yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I think a huge part of Orm was me actually getting to put into play the life lessons I learned at home, right? So things that something as simple as doing your own laundry, or doing, making sure you're doing your classwork. Your parents don't have to come in. So a lot of these things I was instilled young, but you don't really know if you've got it in you until you're out on your own and you're living in a boarding school and you're forced to really put it into practice. So I think those things were the first ones that just popped off where I noticed other people didn't necessarily have that same, comfort in doing those things for themselves at 13, 14 years old. Orm as like a venue, if you will, a place.
Yeah, that's a
And
great word for it now that I think about it. Yeah.
it was one of those places where everybody, even if you from the countryside or you're from the city, everybody had a version of Orm that was a little bit different. Us as athletes, you have that team camaraderie, but I never had my team be my roommate, be my, guy above me. So anything that we had friendship wise, it really blossomed. And I learned a lot about what that meant to really nurture relationships because you're with them all day, every day, 7 days a week, basically, right? So I think the principle in that was just making sure that you're always treating people the right way. It's not something that you see this person one day and then you go home and then you maybe run to you're with them the whole time. So relationship really really matters, and making sure you kept strong bonds with people.
No, you're absolutely right. I tell people it was the most culturally diverse environment you probably would ever step into. I mean, I got the opportunity to be there from seventh grade all the way to graduation. And I may have had one American roommate in all those 6 years. Like my first roommate, John Jang, man, from South Korea, talking about the language barrier. But we did have some things in common, sports and some of the activities. It's interesting how a group of strangers that may or may not get along are kind of like forced to get along because they have to kind of rely on each other for survival. And I like how you pointed out, you're young and it kinds of pushes you or it just thrusts you into maturity. Like you said, doing your own laundry. Like no one came and knocked on our door to wake us up. Like if that alarm clock didn't go off, man, you was getting written up and you had to deal with it. So I can attest that it made my transition to college very seamlessly. Like I remember being in college at Cats. We talk about 18, 19-year-old men homesick. On the phone every day, grinding mama, ready to pack it up, and I'm just chilling. Like this is light work.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll see y'all in a couple weeks.
I see y'all in a couple of weeks, man. I'm telling you, you damn near was treating it like a jail bed, like a stretch. Like, man, you tripping off for 2 weeks? I did it. I did a 6 year stretch.
You do this. You do this. in seventh grade. Wow. Okay, so you really stretch.
Yeah, I was there for a minute, man, and it was like I said, it was life changing. Me coming from my environment, the way that I had viewed the world back then, was totally different once you get thrown in that environment and look through life through a totally different lens. The things you're exposed to, like I said, it being outdoor, you're doing horseback riding. I mean, we had a class in seventh grade. We're doing horseback riding, I'm raising cattle, pigs, livestock, all of that stuff. We're doing arts, and it's just like, man. And then not to mention, and then this is where you and I got to really get into it, the sports of the culture of sports there, bro. Like you would think that you were at a sports academy, especially in my era. Like one, it was damn near mandatory to play something. And then two, if you had any type of athleticism, they was gonna push you to play all the sports that they had available. So it was like, you know how we got these young kids now, one sport, that's it. They all work on that. It was like, no, bro, you're gonna try out the soccer, you're gonna try out this baseball, you're gonna do bowling, you're gonna do all of that. You know what I mean? Love
Yeah,
it.
it's a good place for that for sure.
And speaking of basketball, because that was the sport that pretty much took you to higher levels, was basketball your first sport, your first love, or were you into all the different sports growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Singapore, so growing up here, soccer was the main sport. So I grew up playing that recess. But also, with that in mind, Singapore is so school first, right? So I'd go to school the whole day. Then you'd finish class, you'd come back home, you'd have tutoring. So maybe it was like Malay, which is one of my languages we had to learn. Then you had math tutoring, taekwondo, maybe piano lessons. Like it was just all variations of this kind of stuff, and that's kind of how every student did it. But there was not really sports. Taekwondo was just a self defense thing. My dad was like, "Let's go practice that for a bit when you're young." So then I never really took sports as a serious thing till I moved to the States. And my dad, being the basketball player that he was, that's a whole nother story for another day. But he's got some accolades that are amazing. That's when I really
Hold
started
on,
picking.
bro. Your pop's been hiding all of this from me this whole time. As long as I done known your pops and had conversations, he briefly, like you know how it go. Like I played a little bit. You thinking it back in your mind, like okay, you played some pickup ball. So he played some ball, bro.
Oh, he plays some ball. He's the best in our family, hands down, hands down. He was the captain at Hill House High School in New Haven, Connecticut. He was the captain of the team. They were number two in the country, and they had two. I want to say two, maybe even three McDonald's All Americans on their roster. There's a whole backstory to all this, and I don't want to butcher it on camera, but I know that how it ended was his team was put in the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. So we went there, saw his team photo in that Hall of Fame. It says Captain Frank Crump and so on and so forth. So he's a bad boy. He's a
Man,
bad
I gotta give Pops a hard time next time I talk to him, man. Like, man, go ahead and claim that, man. You know, he's so humble.
big shoes to fill. But to answer your question, it
Yeah,
was first. Then when I shifted to the U.S., nobody was really playing it, and it's not a sport you could really play by yourself, right? You can, but not really. Whereas basketball,
right,
you just need a ball and something to throw it into. So
right.
then it started at about 9 years old. I really started focusing on basketball a lot more, and then by the time I got to Orem, it was definitely my main sport.
So I'm gonna go back to basketball, but you mentioned Taekwondo, but you mentioned it so as a matter of fact, as if it was almost like a mandatory thing that everyone in that country kind of did. It was like that version of PE, pretty much everybody is your version of physical education out there is practicing Taekwondo.
I think every kid had something that was like that. So whether it was not like Taekwondo or um, let's say it was some kind of instrument, whatever. It wasn't necessarily that it had to be fighting or it had to be self defense. It just had to be a practice outside of the traditional education thing, and it wouldn't be more often than not. It wouldn't be a sport. It would be you're trying to teach this kid how to basically think in a different plane. So
Ooh,
instruments, that's a whole different way of preparing and practicing and attention to detail. And then obviously self-defense is same thing, but also
yeah.
emotional control and things like that. Whereas sports kind of were less cared about here. Still are a lot of the time in Singapore in comparison to the rest of the world. We don't have a big push for sports here, but those things, yeah. I think everybody that I went to school with either did some kind of self defense or some kind of instrument. That was the two parallels.
Interesting. The way that you put it in perspective, like you said, it's exercising different parts of the brain, different parts of thinking. So it's almost like you kind of get a whole holistic form of education out there by adding those components. Not saying the US doesn't offer those. But like you said, it seemed like when you were growing up in Singapore, that was kind of almost mandatory. Like, this is what we do. You're going to, it's almost like an arm approach. Like, you're going to try out a lot of things that is going to make you very versatile in life. I like that. So, what's probably made your transition for Orm seamless. Like, okay, we're going to try this out. We're going, because they had us in everything, right?
Yeah, and also I think when I came to Orem, like I was tiny. I was like 5 foot, 98 pound freshman. Like I was tiny,
Really?
tiny. And what's funny is I went and I played football my freshman year because when I went out there for trying out, like when I went up for
Yeah.
sorry to meet the team and whatnot, the coach was there, Coach O. He was like, "Yeah, come up to football camp, man." I had to have been the worst true freshman to ever step on an Orem football field. So, 5 foot 98 pounds and slow. Man, they had me playing
Man.
D, safety, and seventh string running back. So I didn't really know what sports I really was going to excel in outside of basketball. So it was fine for me to try new things. Like I did horsemanship, I played soccer, I played on ran track, did weightlifting. Yeah, it was definitely easy. Wrestling, we had like a kind of a class thing started up. Like yeah, it was easy to switch and try things for that reason.
Nice, nice. And so you're at Orm, you're playing basketball, and you're playing basketball in the States. Now, Arizona's pretty competitive, but it's not like playing back on the East Coast back then, of course. But how was your experience playing high competitive small ball is what I want to call it, because although we were in a smaller division, for some reason we found a way to find great competition all over the place because we were nimble, because we're small. We traveled a lot because we were middle school. So, like, take me through your experience on that and developing.
Yeah, it was really cool, man. My sophomore year, we had a very, very good team, won state that year, and that year was the
Oh,
year
that's
that
the
really.
year.
Yeah, we won. I won
Okay.
it twice. My sophomore year and my senior year, we won state. But my sophomore year was the beginning of exactly what you're talking about, where we went and played like the Pepsi tournament in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Hmm.
Every school there is 4A or 5A. We're the only 2A
Yep.
school there. We won that tournament, and that
Wow.
really put us on the map of like we can go box with anybody. It doesn't matter. We have 150, 300 kids, whatever it is, in the whole school.
Yeah.
So yeah, they made it easy for us starting that sophomore year because we had a squad, man. Let me break down
Yeah.
this team. Our starting five was nasty. We had two guys from Turkey, about 6'2" each. We had a 6'6" Chinese dude named Ray, shoot the lights out the ball. We had a guy from the UK, Theo, also could shoot the ball. And then we had this dude, 6'8", uh, through Switzerland by way of the Congo, his name Michel, and he went on. He's still playing pro now. Plays for the Switzerland national team. He was a beast. And so after that year at Orm, he went off to play at Tracy McGrady's old high school, Mount Zion. So he
Okay.
shifted. We had a squad, and it showed that year for sure. They let us go out and play.
Man, I remember getting the news about that because that's the only thing that I couldn't get done that while I was there is get a chip. In basketball, we went to state twice. We went similar to yours. We went my freshman year and sophomore year. And we had some guys from overseas. We had Klaus, he was 6'11", ended up playing college ball at UC Riverside. We had Tatis from Austria. He was 6'5". Then we had those New York cats that came. So we was balling too, but we could never get it done. And you got two of them, bro?
Two of them.
Dang.
I'm saying this, though, my sophomore year, I was a very, very small part of the actual winning. So I really wanted that senior one, where I was the captain. I was the kind of guy that made the ship go a bit. So it felt good to get that senior year one. You don't want to just get an A on a project for participation, right?
Yeah,
So
man. Yeah, that's the one that counts. Like, man, no, my name is Stetch in that. Like, I'm in the stat book on this one. Yeah, no, I feel it. I feel it.
for the MVP of the tournament, like you earned it this time. You know,
So, man, you part of Arm Royalty too. I'm like, man, well, it's funny. And then I'll get off of this subject. I went back recently to go get my jersey that was hanging up. And I was like, it's kind of sad that they only had two that was retired, myself and Travis. But I'm like, bro, that whole team should have been up there, even though y'all had y'all stuff in that case. But man, it should have been some more jerseys up there. So that's unfortunate. But man, so I'm saluting you for that because, like I said, that's something that I couldn't get done, bro. So, man, thank you for bringing something from us, man. For real, for real. So, so you finish up at Orem, man, and then do you go directly? to playing pro ball after that, or do you take a? Because I was looking at everything that you did, and I know some gaps. So if you could kind of fill in, how did that work out?
Yeah, so after high school, that's where it kind of got interesting because Singapore does a mandatory 2 year national service for every 18-year-old. So I could have chosen not to go back, kept my because I had dual citizenship at the time. I could have just been kept stayed American and given up my passport, but it's the strongest passport in the world. It's the most visa-less access countries, and you just want when you're young, you want to keep options open. You don't know where you want
Yeah,
to live and what you want to do, so it was just a way to keep that option open as well. So I left
yeah,
Arizona, moved to Singapore at 18, and then stayed basically 3 years here because I left a little early before my enlistment and stayed like 6 months after because it was just the timing for college. So spent 3 years here serving in the military. And I was also coaching basketball, which is I think what helped build the connect. Well, definitely it helped build the pipeline for me to come back and play. So yeah, I did
that's
3 years,
dope.
2 years, but 3 years in Singapore right at 18.
Talk about a red shirt. You got a real red shirt. Like, hey, and let's send you to the military, mature you a little bit. Oh, and by the way, we're gonna have you coach. Now, by the
Yeah,
time you're done, you're like, okay, I'm well primed for this. And you're
yeah,
still young. You probably what by this time you hit maybe 21, you would be like what
yeah.
a collegiate
21
junior.
at ASU.
Easy money.
Yeah. But so that yeah, so basically I came back to college at ASU, but I
Mhm.
was on an academic scholarship. No basketball. I didn't play a lick of college ball. But I was getting my undergrad in business law. Long story short, basically, near my junior year, I knew I didn't really. Sorry, is my connection? Is that me or you?
No, you're good. That's me. That's my computer moving, my camera. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, around my junior year, I'd come back to Singapore just to visit, and one of my really good friends, he has this coaching academy called Proform. His name's Noel Pollock. He sets up games occasionally against the national team, and they're priming themselves, ready to go to some tournaments. They got to get some good work locally. So they'll put a ragtag group of the best players that we have in Singapore together and give them a run for their money. So I happened to be in town for that game. Played pretty well in that game, and then the coach was like, "Hey, I heard you're Singaporean. You ever thought about coming back and playing?" So I hadn't at that time, but then he brought it up. I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure about law school. I've always wanted to play
Mm,
ball at the higher level. Like, is my last time playing ball going to be on? Is that it? So
mm.
still young, your body's still fresh enough to do it, and Singapore is a business hub. So I figured if I was ever going to try to figure out what I want to do in life, it'd be a great place to be. Be a great place to be, and I'm glad I did that. So came back after college, and then that's when that ball started rolling for at least a couple years. Checked it off the bucket list, and then got the network to build into where I'm at now.
So let me tell you why I respect you so much in the way you think and how mature you were, right? You had the wherewithal to know that if you got an opportunity to play in that major city, that you can leverage that to network. You know what I mean? And that's one of the biggest things that I'm making an argument about right now in this push to these athletes. Like, listen, I call it your platform. Like, your platform is going to be as big as it's going to get, right? While you're playing, unless you get an opportunity to excel. And I'm like, you will be a fool not to maximize that platform because this is the only time, and you probably did this, where when you were playing, you can go call somebody of importance, i.e., a CEO, and be like, hey, I'm Navin that plays for Singapore Natural. Can I take you for lunch and pick your brain? 99% of the time, they're going to be like, when and where and what time, young man. You know what I mean? But so many people miss out on that opportunity and they wait until they're done to try to do that. And some even wait until they're years removed to try to do that. And it's like you don't have the momentum. So by you being able to make that connection, it's like, man, I get to serve too, i.e., I still get to play and see, how far it can take me. And I kind of get to leverage this. Now, I got to ask you this because me knowing your dad, was this your maturity or did Pops pull you to the side like, look, here's the play?
Yeah, you know what? I can never think of any decision I made without my parents, right? Because they've really instilled this thought process in me, but they always allowed me to make my own decisions. So, for example, even with the military, that's a monumental decision. Keep a
Yeah,
passport, go to the military, leave what I would consider at that time really my home was Arizona. I didn't really 9 years old. You left Singapore. He didn't. Those were my formative years. So they've always
right.
given me the information and then said, hey, this is your decision. You're gonna have to live with it. So you make the choice, but these are what we think, and maybe we'll give you our opinion on what we think is best. But this is what you need to decide. When it came to basketball, that was 100% me because I think the thought process was only like my mom loved it because anytime her kids get back to Singapore, she's all for it.
Yeah.
And then my dad, I think he just wanted me to make sure that I'm doing what I should do based on how I felt about things. So what I mean by that is law school being the next step. Like I think that was not only doable, but it was the pipeline was there. I had enough
Yeah.
in school, done well enough, and I basically set myself up to do that. But my heart wasn't in it. I didn't want to go and just get a degree just because that was next. Spend all that money, go into bits of debt for that. Whatever the case may be.
Right.
So I think what made it easy for me to feel that support was when I went to them with an idea, like I just shared with you, which was I want to go there and really just build upon the network that I learned I could build when I was
Yeah.
there for the military. Singapore is
That makes sense.
35 square miles. Like it's tiny. That's it.
Okay.
It's tiny. So you meet so many people doing extravagant things here because everybody here is I think if you're an expat, I want to say the number, don't quote me on this, but it's like you need to be making about $7,000 a month minimum. That's what a company needs to pay you to bring an expat in and not give that job to a local. So they're all
Whoa.
highly trained,
Yeah. Yeah.
smart people making good money and trying to do good things for big organizations, right?
Yeah.
But those are also the people you play on these pickup games with, and these are the people you meet in the bar or wherever, right? So I learned that in the military time, and then when it was time to go back for this, I was like, this is for sure going to work because, like you said, being an athlete, you get access to different groups, but then if you leverage that, there's a lot more doors that you can open.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's just so dope that, like I said, you had the wherewithal to know and understand that young and still be able to execute that. Which takes me to my next question. Like I said, you studied law, but now you're in business, specifically sales and management. Take me through that process. What made you make that transition to going into business and sales specifically versus staying, in the law field?
Yeah, I think I was lucky that one of my really good friends he works in this company. He kind of painted this picture to me. I work for Datadog, and it's tech sales, right? Leading up to this, the company I was working for before, we were basically it's a venture studio, which I didn't really know what this term was till I joined it, but it's essentially it was an incubator that had a 6-7 million so to speak fund behind us, and then we were able to create small businesses within it. So we were selling ice baths and saunas. I know you see a lot of these inflatable ice baths people are doing with the
Yeah.
chiller. We were doing
Yep.
that in 2022. So we were one of the first ones to really build that and get into that page out here. It was already being big in the States at that point. So I figured out through that I was running operations for us, but I figured out how much I enjoyed the sales process, talking to people, getting them to understand, a product is for you based on specific elements of you. Because, an ice bath's just an ice bath, but some people used it to recover from sports. Some people were CEOs. They just wanted to stop drinking so much coffee in the morning. So they take a quick 2 minute
Yeah.
plunge and then they're up to go,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Figuring out that was really, I enjoyed that thought process. And I think that's why I stepped away from law because I also really enjoyed the thought process of, formulating arguments and piecing together a conversation that takes you basically through a story, but also, you know, establishes certain facts and tenets, But then when I got deeper into it, I realized that law isn't always that, especially if you're talking about criminal law, right ain't
Yeah.
always right and vice versa.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know if I figured that I couldn't really deal with the gray area of that as a profession because now you're talking about, let's say you got to defend somebody that's dead wrong. You in your heart of hearts don't believe in this type of thing. How are you going to deal with that? So I figured the thought process was good to learn, but to do it as a profession for years and years, I don't know about that. Whereas sales is people, I
Yeah.
think that's fun.
That's dope. No, man, bro, you have a strong moral compass. Not saying the people that don't, because like I said, those roles need to be filled in society, so it is value. But you're like, hey, man, you want to be able to, rest comfortably mentally at night. However, at the same time, I don't care what nobody say. To learn the skill set in law will make you a beast. in any arena, like you said, to be able to tell a story, extract facts and data, and then still regurgitate it and bring it back to the audience or the people that you're trying to represent is pretty much sales. Like, I'm thinking about it, like it's sales, bro. Now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, bro. Light bulb just hit me like, yeah, bro, that's the process.
You know, something that stuck out to me too, which was that's what almost made me go to law school was, like you said, just having that law degree isn't. You don't have to be a lawyer. That's not where you have to go. You get to learn how to think, and I thought that would maybe still be worth it, despite me not necessarily wanting to become a lawyer. I'm like, you can learn so much in the processes of law school that you now take with you throughout life, and maybe you do take it to sales or whatever business in general. So I almost did decide to still do it just based on that you said alone.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So share with me, and I don't know if you've been aware of this, but since you've been in sales for some time, do you or have you noticed that you see more retired athletes get into the profession of sales, no matter what industry that they're in, and they tend to either excel at that or just pure entrepreneurship or business leadership? Have you noticed that in your
Yeah,
experience?
definitely. Definitely. I mean, I think of some of my closest friends here and abroad. A lot of them are ex-athletes, whether it's collegiate or pro, and I think there's that element of betting on yourself. That's a big part about being an athlete is having that level of I know I can do it. I have to see it before everybody else. So you end up leaning into your own your own beliefs of that, and that whether that's a business idea, whether that's like you said, sales. You're speaking to people and you have to sell them on this idea. Is a lot of parallels to that. I think a lot of it comes from like I need to believe in myself, almost
Yeah.
to a crazy level.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say cocky and arrogant. People say that, but it's really just
It's a fine
confidence.
line. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really like if you do it right, it may come off as cocky to the average Joe, but in your heart of hearts, you're really just you need to get to that point to maximize your ability. So yeah, I definitely do see that.
It's interesting you said that. You used the analogy, if it's a fine line between, cocky and arrogance. And I was having a conversation with someone similar, and I was talking about just success in general. And I was like, to be honest with you, success is selfish to a certain extent, and depending on how much success you're trying to achieve, is damn near psychopathic
Mm,
or a narcissist. You know what I mean? I'm like the ones that can do it well and still kind of be, there's no such thing of balance, trying to chase success, but that can do it well enough can kind of tippy toe that fine line and know kind of maybe when to shut it on and shut it off. But it's like in order to achieve things, whether it be it in any field of high risk and high reward and high competitiveness, like you kind of have to build your mind to be able to be so laser focused, so offensive minded, aggressive, etc. If not, you're just going to fall by the wayside. I would love for you to share because, like I said, bro, by you being a part of two state championships, playing at a high level, then, bro, you're not a slouch, nowhere near that. You know what I mean? Mentally, I'm talking about, and still serve the military. So you have a killer instinct. How are you able to, one, I got two questions for you. How are you, one, able to manage that and be able to, maneuver in the world of business? And two, how are you, or what's your method and approach to business that you've learned and took that, molded you to be an athlete? If I asked the question correctly.
yeah, that makes. I think the first thing I think of is my approach. I didn't realize that I was this way until I stopped playing sports like as often as I was. We still try to stay in shape and do some stuff, but I was bringing that level of intensity you talked about and whatnot to everything sometimes. And I think I'd like to say I could turn it on and off, but I realized that it really wasn't off. It's never really off. And what I mean by that, the competitive fire that I have I mean, we could be playing board games. I want to win, like I really want to win. And I
Right.
may be having fun and whatnot, but it ain't no fun to lose. It ain't no fun to lose. So
Just because I'm smiling don't mean I'm not trying to kill you.
don't let me have a teammate because we gonna strategize. So you put me on a team with somebody, they better be serious.
For real,
So
for real.
so I realized that for myself, and there was a time when I first switched over to business that I thought that that might make people uncomfortable. So you have to turn it off and hold it in or disguise it.
Yeah.
And that I think I've now realized isn't true. It's actually a superpower that we need to keep as athletes throughout life. Is that's how you look at the world, and you'll always try to excel. If you take something as serious as all that I am, not serious in a negative way, but I'm
Yeah.
doing this with purpose, with intention,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But what you do need to understand, and that's just something you do as teammates as well, is you don't talk to every teammate the same, right? Especially as a captain and a leader, you know who needs a kick on the butt, you know who needs a hand around the shoulder. So as you do in sports, you're still looking for that same thing out of them, which is intention and purpose and competitiveness. But you're taking the onus on yourself to say, I need to make sure I'm delivering this in a way that gets that end result. Because if I deliver it in a way that works for me, but doesn't get us to that end result as teammates or colleagues or whatever, then it was pointless anyways. Am I really looking for that end result, or am I just trying to say my piece? Am I just trying to
Correct.
get into somebody's face? So my method, I think, has changed over time as I got into business and deal with people who aren't athletes, who maybe always need a hand around the shoulder or extra, guidance or whatever it is. And sorry, your second part of that question was?
You actually answered it within when you were talking about taking that mentality, and you said at first, trying to learn how to turn it off and turn it on, but you said it's a superpower to know how to just keep it on. And it's like being unapologetic about it, pretty much like, hey, this is just who I am, this is how I'm approaching it. But then at the same time, as a leader, knowing how to approach other people on your team. So you pretty much answered that question for me. No, I appreciate that. Business. And it's one of my favorite conversations outside of sports. I still like philosophy too. Those are like my three: sports, business, and philosophy. Talk to somebody about that all day, or just life in general, right? Like I said, I still have the strong push that, like I said, athletes, once they transition, they should be in some form of business, leadership, or entrepreneurship, right? But I want to also talk about finance because it's a little bit in your background, i.e., your dad. How should these athletes be approaching finance, whether they get the because now in the States, these collegiate athletes get the opportunity to earn some capital for once, right? Whether it be an NIL deal or they figure out how to figure something out on the outside. And then if they're fortunate enough to play at a professional level, well, that's a whole different conversation. But even for the ones that don't, I think the next frontier that athletes need to learn how to master is the world of finance and how and leveraging their personal brand to put them in position similar to how you put yourself in position to gain, not only just finance but just wealth and position. Period. I would love your take and your thoughts on it by you just being involved in everything at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's spot on. And I think what changed for me was when my dad told me that saving is that's just one way we word it. And a lot of the times people say saving and they feel like I'm tucking money away, I'm saving it for a rainy day, and that almost makes them feel like I can come out of that anytime I have. They may put some money aside, but everything is a rainy day, so they always take something out, right?
Sure.
And then it's not really savings; it's just your second bank account. When I changed that thought process, and he said you should be paying yourself. You did all this work. You got, whatever your contract is. You got whatever you're getting for per month. But that is the money you're going to use for all of the things that you need to live life. But what are you paying to yourself that's the savings. So don't touch that. That's something that you put towards that's how much am I worth based on what I think I need to be, setting aside. And when I started doing that, you start seeing the money grow, but also you start realizing that you have more conversations about money because you've got this thing here that you're trying to figure out how to create and do something with. I knew as a kid, right? Like, we probably grew up relatively similar in certain ways. And like money, you didn't talk about money with people because everybody was struggling. It was a painful conversation. So
Painful conversation.
you really tucked that convo to the side, and the only time you had money was about how much more you needed or how this was going to cost, right? Like it was never about how do we expand our money.
Yeah, money was like, man, this is too damn expensive. Where
Yeah,
am I gonna get some more? It wasn't how I'm gonna make what I got grow. It definitely wasn't that.
definitely wasn't that. And I realized that's what it is when you don't have, you definitely don't want to discuss it, right?
Mm.
And especially not with with people that aren't right in that circle that already maybe know your finances. You're not gonna maybe go out there and put yourself out on a limb. And what I realized is when I started, and it wasn't nothing crazy. I wasn't putting away
Yeah.
thousands of dollars, but I was putting away enough to now view it a different way. So then
You
when
were
I do,
exercising the muscle.
yes.
Bingo. Yeah.
So then I spoke to certain people that were doing better than me, and it was easier to have this convo because they didn't like what we also don't realize is people don't expect you to be where they are financially, especially if they're worth talking to about it. Like if you're talking to somebody that's really doing something, they're not coming,
Mm.
they're not looking at you like you should have what I have. They're happy to share it. They're happy to give you info. They're happy to, that you're interested because most people aren't interested enough to ask.
Oh,
So that was
not to cut you off on that
go
one
ahead.
because I want to extract on that a little bit more. As I started to age and get the opportunity to speak with, like I said, very wealthy individuals, a taboo was breaking that when I was raised that rich people hoard information or hoard resources. It is the freaking opposite. They are so generate with information connections. I'm just like, what the heck was I missing this time? Like what?
Yeah.
Just ask, man. Literally just ask. So I wanted to just double down when you mentioned that, man, because that shift my paradigm big time. Go ahead.
Closed mouths don't get fed. Closed mouths do not get fed. So you better say something. But also, the more that you ask, the more comfortable you get at how to ask. How to speak about it in the right way. This still does make the person feel respected and gives them enough leeway to answer in a way that's safe for them, right? Like I say that because here, Singapore, it's so taboo to us in the States, which is you don't ask somebody how much their rent is, right? Like we
Mhm.
don't really do that. And then I'm talking about you getting a taxi and the guy's like, "Oh, you stay here? How much is your rent?" You're like,
He's like, what?
"Oh, they'll ask you how
Mind
much
your
your
business.
yeah, they ask
Yeah,
you how much
that. Yeah.
you're like,
Wow.
and that's to me still taboo. You don't do that. But there's ways to speak to somebody about how they're managing their finances. Whether it is like maybe you can ask somebody, "Hey, like, did you move into this like right away? Did you take some time to invest into this property?" Now your
Yeah.
finance processes, which matters more than how much he paid. You can Google
Bingo.
that property.
Correct.
So
Correct.
yeah, that's the way I think that most people need to start looking at money, especially as athletes, because we know how to ask questions about the sport.
We do.
You put somebody that plays basketball in front of LeBron, they're gonna ask him about, hey, you're posting somebody, what are you feeling for? Do you feel your pivot here? We know how to ask the nuances.
Yeah.
It's just changing that muscle's already there. It's just changing the topic.
I like that. I'm gonna put that in my notes. So you pretty much when you ask, you're asking for the process and the principles, not necessarily the dollar amount, how much this costs. It's like, hey, how did you put yourself in a position to do here? What was your thought process on, acquiring ABC or whatever the case may be? I like that. That's good game to give to these athletes. I love it. So my other question, I actually skipped it, my fault, but I'm going back to it. I always want to talk about the transition. Now that you are officially retired, man, how were you able to mentally and emotionally transition once you finally was like, listen, I might play a pickup game, but I'm done getting paid or taking it. Not saying we don't take it serious on the pickup game, but you know what I mean. Like this is
Yeah,
no longer my lifestyle, or
yeah.
my profession.
It was a sad time because I tore my Achilles, and that's what
Mm,
led to it ending essentially, right? And now that I'm where I'm at with it, and it's passed so long, it's easy to talk about. But it was my first time really understanding depression, to be completely honest, because I never really had, we don't grow up really hearing that term,
yeah.
anxiety, depression, all that stuff. And
Yeah,
to
our
me,
families tell us to go take a nap, right? Man, go sleep on it.
get over
You
it,
know
man.
how our families are.
What you crying for?
Yes.
I think what stuck with me when it happened because I tore my Achilles basically about 2 months before the season started, and I still in my mind hadn't figured out what I wanted to do in my mind, right? And I think what we also need to realize is that nobody ever really fully knows what they want to do all the time because that changes. As you get older, as you want to do other things, as more things become interested in you, that changes. But at the time, I'm like, I came here to play ball and figure out that. And to me, that was more important because that was going to be the bulk of my life is figuring out whatever that is. And to go back to my dad, as you can tell, I like to tip my hat to him a lot, especially when it came to this, because one thing he said to me, he was like, I don't think you would have left playing ball if it wasn't taken from you. You didn't have any plans to leave. And he was
Got you.
100% right.
Got
He was
you.
100% right. And that changed my perspective. because you're like, God has a plan, man. Man has a plan, God has a plan. They aren't always the same. That's another one of his little quotes he likes to say to me, which is so true because we love to say that when it's good things. God's plan, and so I'm so happy this happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's you like a brick house. You have to realize that same thing is true. So when I started pivoting, it was it felt forced because of the injury, but it didn't feel forced because I acquired skills and thought processes through sports that had led me to being able to, jump off and be all right. And then once you get over the fact that like you knew, you're not gonna play basketball when you're 70. You knew it was gonna end anyways at some point.
Right.
And I'm still playing. I still like to play. I still like to stay in shape. But you know it's gonna end. But when it does, you need to kind of wrap your head around that. That doesn't mean that you end.
Correct.
you know like we are so tied into our athlete, and that's our fault, but it's also how the world views us, especially if you're good enough. You're like, hey, that's Jabari, that was that dude on the field. That was, that's what you're equated to. And even now I hear it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I'll shoot a thing in the trash can in the office and I miss it. They're like, I thought you played ball. Like all these little things.
Yeah, yeah.
But once you like realize you're not just an athlete, you are
Yeah.
all things you learn through being an athlete, and then some. It makes it a lot easier.
Man, I love that you closed it on that because that's another thing that I'm pushing because a lot of times society tells us to be, to quote, more than an athlete. But now I'm starting to push back and lean and be like, no, I am an athlete. But what you don't understand is there's so many things that come with being an athlete that has nothing to do with me bouncing a ball or catching a football. You know what I mean? And that's what the narrative I'm trying to shift. Like, no, the athlete is a mentality. It's a persona. It's how we carry ourselves. It's our approach. It's our values. It's the way that we look at life. And a lot of times us on the court or on the field is just a quick reflection of all of those things. You kind of get to see it in real time. But the athlete always have been from within, if you get my drift. And you're specifically are exercising that within your entire journey. So everything that, from the questions that I asked you in your response comes from an athlete perspective, which is the mentality you approach it. You talked about how you would prep for something, how you would strategize and break things down. That's all athletics. You know what I mean? But, a lot of times outside looking in, they just see the physical part of it. It's like, bro, the physical is literally 10% of what an athlete is.
Thinking man's
So
game.
much- It's a thinking man's game. It's so psychological. It's so emotional. It's even freaking spiritual. You know what I mean? Man, listen, now I'm about to, since the school is no longer, so I'm gonna let some secrets. Them sled meetings were spiritual, bro.
Yo, yeah,
Them sled
yeah.
meetings were spiritual, bro.
Sled meetings. You guys talking about football?
Yeah.
Sled. Did you guys have sled put? Okay, we had something different. We did a little
Okay.
different stuff.
So we would go on the field, that big old oak tree.
Yeah,
So that the reason why they called it sled meet is because it started, I believe they said in the early 80s, I think 82 or 83, they were having a losing season doing bad. One of the captains was like, look, we're not losing no more games. So what they did was they had a huddle the night before the game. They would all go under that tree and they would just talk and they would just it wasn't more like a film session where they were game planning, but they were just it was some brotherhood shit. Like they was just sharing who they were, what they were about, their passion for the game, and then over time it evolved to then even add in like, hey, this is how I'm mentally prepared. Here's how I'm gonna support you. It damn near felt like I said, it was spiritual because it felt like church. Like it was just that was the only time when an underclassman, if you got the opportunity to suit up, where you can go because this was always after curfew. Like sled meetings started at like 10 o'clock. Sometimes we'll get back at like 11 or midnight. So I guess maybe they stopped by the time you got there, but
yeah,
it was a 20 to 30-year tradition at Orm. Yeah, bro. That's what was games. I've never and what's funny was by me experiencing that in high school set the tone on how I felt a locker room should be. And I was like, if I wasn't in the locker room where I felt that level of brotherhood or camaraderie, I would always second guess like that program, you know what I mean, or that team. And I
yeah.
only experienced that, I'm gonna be honest with you, but I ain't gonna name the team, one other time since high school. And that one other time our team did pretty well. And I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Not good anybody. Take that
Yeah,
offline.
exactly. I'm gonna take that. You know what I mean? You do your own research and see who that was. You know what I mean? But yeah, but no, it was big because, like I said, we would sit in a circle around that tree, and we would just, I mean, we talk about life, the things that was weighing heavy on us. Like people was telling us that they were depressed during that time, and there's a reason why they were failing in school or not performing. It was like, oh, I didn't know he was going through this. You know what I'm saying? You got those opportunities to be vulnerable. You got those opportunities to imagine, to think, to plan. It was just a great environment. That's why I always say that that place was magical, like no other. Before I let you go, because I know I already done stole a good solid hour of your time, man. I'll call this last part. Well, I don't even know. I haven't even named it yet, but maybe we'll come with it later. But what I would like for you to do is offer the next generation your athlete playbook. So if you had any advice, strategy, jewels, gems, I would love for you to share with the next generation coming up on how they should be able to maneuver, not only approach life, but approach sports in general and things that you would have done if you could do differently. Where's yours, baby?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've always looked up to and like to do myself and as best as I can is, you we just talked about it with, the wealthy and people that give game. All you got to do is ask, right? I like to try to be the person that's always giving back as much as I can without people asking sometimes, right? You see somebody working on their game or whatever. So looking down the pipeline as an athlete makes you realize a lot more. And I say that because when I was coaching, you learn a lot more about the game by coaching, right? You start breaking down nuances to explain it to people. But what I realized is the impact I had on the kids was way bigger than basketball when these came to speak to me after when they got older and whatnot. So I guess my tip to people would be the relationships you're building in sports are huge, and it says a lot about who you are as a person. So that means whether you're on time, whether you try and put effort in, injured, not injured, whatever it is. If you're going to put it, if you're injured, do put the effort in on your rehab. If you're out there healthy, put the effort in on the court, field, whatever it is. But doing that in conjunction with the people that you're with. So keeping a good relationship with your coach, your teammates, all the things that you do, they do matter. And the people that I see succeeding outside of sports are the ones that did that because now everybody can't wait to help them. Everybody can't wait to.
Mm.
You're a great person. You were a great person every step of the way. It wasn't just that you were. Some of these guys weren't even the best players on their team at the time, but because of the way that they carried themselves and had an awareness that it mattered. You may be the best player in the state, country, whatever, but you treat people poorly. They're going to remember that when you're not the best player anymore and you need a friend and you need a communicator and you need something. So I think we get caught up in, being cocky and confident, whatever you want to call it, in our own juices sometimes. And you need to, but don't forget that people watch you in way more ways than just when you're on that under those lights. So yeah, I would say just make sure you're focused on the sport, but what you mean in your universe around you. It'll matter
No,
after you.
that's amazing advice, man. I love it. I love it. This is now the last one, and this is a game that I play. So I know you and I, without telling our ages, we didn't get the opportunity to get an NIL deal in college, right? But we got these youngsters that are going to get this opportunity. So let's play this game. I'll call it Bag or Broke. So you're a young basketball player, and you just signed with a Division I school, and you got 200, a quarter million, right? All yours. What would you do with that? You being let's say a 19, 20-year old collegiate athlete,
And I'm a freshman, you said, so I'm staying in the
freshman,
dorm.
sophomore. Yeah, no, I don't know what the rules is, but dorm, no, they stand in these houses now. When I went to my alma mater, I saw freshmen and sophomore standing in damn near luxury apartments. This is a whole different ball game, bro. Yeah, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I'm still aging us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm assuming that as a collegiate athlete, enough and
Mhm.
stuff is covered, I would put at least half of that into the S&P. I think you can't go wrong. It's something that withstands the test of time. It's basically you're betting on everybody else that's doing well already, right? So if you're not too, the people listening, if you're not too privy, definitely do your research and get going on that because people talking about Bitcoin and all those other things. I think that's the one staple that has held strong.
Yeah,
So I'd put at least half of that into there because I didn't have 250,000. I was doing just fine. So if I have 125, I'm still doing just fine.
exactly.
Now on the other part of that, I don't know what their financial situation is with the family, but I'd like to, give some of that back to my mom and dad. That'd be one of my priorities. I think that, you know, money saved is great, but money that can be shared and help people that have helped me, I'm always happy to do that, especially for my two parents. And then I think you're young and you obviously want to be as good with your money as you can,
Yeah.
but you also don't really understand money until you've spent some of it, right? Like until you actually use some of it and realize this actually wasn't worth it. I can tell you the first time that I did that was actually at Orem. I was playing these dudes. Maybe I shouldn't say. Actually, the school's not around anymore.
It's Saturday. We good now.
So I didn't have a lot right coming up, and like I wasn't getting allowance or anything like that. So I'd play these kids one on one. I don't know why they do it, but they'd play me one on one. I'd give them like, let's say we're playing the 11. I'd give them 8 points, 9 points. If they beat me, I give them 50. If I win, they give me 10.
Mm,
And I wouldn't lose no games. So, but they were always like, they'd be climbing and I'd let them play. It was a little hustle, but I had racked up enough money and I'm like, oh, I want some shades. Like, I need some shades, right? We went to the mall and I bought some Polo Ralph Lauren shades for like $180. That's
okay.
18 games though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I bought them and I wore them and I'm like, man, this wasn't worth them 18 games I just played to like, what a dumb use of this money. So I would also tell these kids that if you got that money, if I had it, at that young age, spend it on something and see if it's really
Yeah.
worth what you purchased it for. One
Yeah.
thing that don't too crazy, but that thing you've been always wanting that isn't on the highest side of the spectrum, go get it, and you'll really realize it ain't what you thought it was when it was not tangible and out of reach. And then you start appreciating money a lot more, and you're gonna say, I don't need to spend 10K on some shoes or whatever the heck it is. Like that was stupid. So yeah, I didn't spend all the money, but I think you get the gist of it in a sense. Put a lot of it into something that's stable. Take care of the people that took care of you. Be a kid, really do learn these
Yeah.
things now. I don't be doing that
Yeah.
dumb stuff at 30, right? So be a kid, but yeah, that'd be my best way of spending that, I think.
That's some good advice. So it's okay. Scratch the itch, right? But just don't make it a lifestyle change or a habit. Like you got to experience it. That's what we work our butts off for because we want that car or that shiny thing. You know what I mean? But you're absolutely right. Once you get it, I mean, you get the thrill of it that first night that you take it out the package or you wear it in public. You like it's cool. The moment you put that thing back in the closet, you might not never bring it out again. And you like, man, I just spent all this bread.
Like they just do it too much. Like where am I gonna wear this?
Where am I going to wear it, man? And then you find out, man, you spend half of that on an experience and you remember that moment forever. You know what I mean? So it's interesting, but I think that's good advice. Because it's damn near impossible to tell a kid to invest 100% of that somewhere. They gonna look at you like, nah, bro, we're not doing that. But I do like the advice on exactly, exactly. But I do like the advice on the safe bet, man. Like, dog, you can't go wrong with the S&P 500. You feel me? Like if that tanks, man, we got a bigger problem.
You got a big.
Fine. We got a way bigger problem. You know what I mean?
You said something that I'd like to add in there just while I can.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Experiences are huge, right? And I think the best experience that I was given at a young age, living in Singapore, is so small, was that it's easy to travel around. So as a kid, we'd go, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. We did little small trips, and as a kid, you don't realize how much it matters. But as an adult, now you see. When I just came back from Sri Lanka last month for my
Nice.
birthday, and the experience of being elsewhere and realizing that people are doing so many different things all across the globe, and we live in our little boxes in the US. Even if you're going from state to state, it's still the US box, you know.
Yeah.
Getting out at a young age and really getting that exposure, I think is priceless, absolutely
Okay.
priceless. So yeah, put some of that money into a trip, take somebody, go out there and experience some life at a young age, and you'll come back a better person.
Man. Man, and we can cap it off at that. That's game from Navin Crump, baby. I love it. I love it. I had to say it with the swag. Navin.
Yeah,
It's my boy.
yeah.
It's my boy Navin right there.
Yeah, this was great, man. I really appreciate you and the platform you built. I had a question for you, man.
Yeah,
If you
sure.
don't.
You want this one to be recorded or
Yeah,
offline?
yeah.
It's
Let's,
up to you.
let's put it. I mean, it's
Okay,
up
yeah,
to
yeah,
you.
for sure.
But I think it's cool that you've done this. The platform that you've built and even the questions you've asked. Like I wanted to really give you your flowers on that because it's not something that everybody's taking their time at 6 a.m. To do. But I want to know what was the I guess the catalyst for you to say that this was the medium that you can do it on? Because you do it in so many different ways, right? You have so many different processes that you have, but you clearly decided, hey, having meaningful conversations mattered. So what was that catalyst for you to say, I want to do it this way?
Man, I'm glad you asked that question because it's been a long process, man. I got time to break it down. I'm acting like I'm valuing somebody else's time. I'm like, damn, this is my show. I'm just respecting your time, but no, I'll take the time to break it down. Similar to you, bro. I'll never forget coming home 2008, bro. I drove from St. Louis all the way to California, bro, in my car. Knowing that, man, I was never going to strap up cleats again on a serious level, right? And that was a 26, 28 hour drive where I was just in my thoughts, bro. I didn't turn on the radio or nothing, right? And I remember pulling in the driveway, going to my room and put my bags down, look in the mirror, and I was like, bro, this is the exact same room, the same house where when I was 13 and I left, I said, I'm never coming back here if it's up to me. And I'm like, and that's when this shit reality hit me. Like, where did I go wrong? So now this whole time I'm frustrated. You're thinking like you're thinking as if you're a failure. You know what I mean? Because mission ain't accomplished to what you think it is, right? But you find out later that everybody that supported you and loved you is proud of you because you made it as far as you can go. But you know how we are. We like, yo, if it ain't the target, it ain't a W. That's just how we look at life, right? Oh, I get into the workforce, but this is during 2008, so shit is all messed up and shambles. So getting regular, I don't like to call it dead end jobs because the opportunity is an opportunity, and it's how you seize the opportunity. But I'm getting the job that I knew wasn't going to be a career, so I'm frustrated in that, right? Then you still got friends that's playing on Sundays, and you're seeing their lifestyle, and you're like, "Well, I'm not there." So you're just going through all this mental thing. So then I started testing out being an entrepreneur. Did very well in that, but not understanding finances back then it imploded, right? So life lesson, hard, humbling life lesson. So now I'm like, all right, bro, I just made in my eyes, two major mistakes. I'm like, oh, I can't be messing up like this. And it's crazy now that I'm hearing this story. I'm like, yo, that's not even as bad. It ain't like I got somebody pregnant or caught a felony. I'm just like, I failed taking risks. Like, what am I like? This is this is maturity speaking now, but when I'm 25, 26, everything is catastrophic. So what I do is I go back to school, further my education. I pursued my master's program. And during that time, I remember our professor was like, listen, you're going to work on a thesis. This thesis is going to take you 2 years. So it better be about something that you're passionate about. I'm like, well, I want to study how I got into the situation. So that's when I started just learning the psychology of an athlete, how athletes transition and all of that. And then that's when it hit me. I realized, like, oh, I'm not the only one that went through this or that is going to go through this. There's going to be millions more. And so my me being the wise man I am, I was like, well, let me be the answer. I meant the solution to my problem. And then if I can do that, I can be a solution to everybody's problem. And at that point is when I made a life decision and a life choice. I said, no matter where life's take me, i.e. vocational or like just profession, I'm always going to have this and build it. And I remember talking to some mentors. I remember having a conversation with your dad about this. He back in 2010, and he, advice he gave me, stick with it. It's about to be tough, what you're trying to do. People not really doing it. At that time, it wasn't too many programs of people doing it. Now it's ubiquitous. Everybody's talking about transition and all that. I talked to another mentor and he's like, bro, you live in Los Angeles? He said, if you lived anywhere else, Atlanta, Texas, he's like, you can get this thing going in 5 years because you're in LA. It's going to take you 2 decades. He's like, my best advice to you is have the stamina to be able to do it for 2 decades. So now I'm rolling on what, damn near 15 years? Damn, I'm getting old. And so now all of my ideas, my focus is starting to technology is starting to catch up with it. So I always had a show. The first show was called The Professional Athlete, and I was actually on location interviewing ex-collegiate and professional athletes. That shit was expensive, and I didn't have no producer that was, getting to the bank. So this was all coming from me. So it had a cool run, but I just ran out of bandwidth. So now that this platform allows me to where, like I said, I can get up in the morning and do it. There's no one stopping me. Like I said, when I first did, I had a team, but you know how I go. You have a team. They go different ways. That's just life, can't take it personal. But now I'm like, whether I get a team or not, I'm going to do this. And once I made that decision, like, I'm going to just put my head down. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then I'll look up a couple of years later and I'll take scores, see where I'm at and keep going. That, and then I first started off with the books. right? So first book, Life's Playbook, 11 Places to Success was cool. Then I just finished releasing Athlete Mindset Reset. So then I realized something triggered too. I was like, I don't think I'm going to get respected for these books right now. And it might not be while I'm alive. Learning just how books are with people. A lot of times you get your credit and your flowers once you're long gone, right? Or old, right? Just where the mentality is of people. Then I realized like, damn, athletes don't read. I got to stop saying it, but it's kind of true. They don't. So I was like, the message still has to be the message. I got to keep the message alive. So I'm like, how do I share the message? So that's when I was like, all right, here we go. I got to have these conversations. And then I took myself out of it because I'm like, well, me, not to self impose, like, well, who am I? Why am I going to get up and tell people? I'm like, let me go ahead and talk to people that are on this exact same journey and have a nuanced perspective on things and that can give game. And I can just be a master facilitator and allow for, this to go. So that's where I'm at. I know it was long winded, but I,
That's amazing.
I do like being asked that question because yeah, this is passionate. This is what I want to be known for. I got a job and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I want to be known for putting these athletes in the best position to win, not only for life after sports, but while they're even playing. So like my biggest thing is to maximize your platform, no matter what platform you're on. Leverage your resources, think outside the box, take a chance. Don't listen to outside society saying don't focus on sports. That's just because they can't run fast and jump high like you. Yes, focus on it and focus on X, Y, and Z. We're going to do it all. We're going to run it up and we're going to build a community that's going to build the largest safety net. So when, you do fall, we're going to catch you and build you back up. So that's where I'm at with it, bro.
That's amazing. I think you've also like the skills that you have, writing and the sport background and whatnot. You're the perfect person for that kind of facilitating of this conversation. So yeah, I can see this. I can see this being exactly what you want and then some. And you said the main thing that I think we spoke about earlier too, which is like I don't need it. If I have a team, I don't have a team, I can do this and there's no stopping me. Right. And that's the entrepreneurial mindset that I feel like athletes just come into it with. Is come hella high water, if I'm on the team, that's the team. That's the team that can get it done. And you're 100% right.
It's the
100%
athlete
right.
mindset in me, bro. That's the reason why that's the brand. It's the athlete mindset, bro. You take the things you learn from being an athlete. Like I said, at one point in time, I had my whole school on my back. So I just channel in that energy and be like, look, people are more than welcome to help and support. Trust me, I love it. I take it on. But if not, the show must go on and I'll figure out how to figure it out, bro. That's where I'm at with it. And at this point in this stage in my life, me raising my son, he really has to see that, what I'm saying, firsthand. So I'm kind of like forcing myself to practice what I preach in action. So I'm laser, bro. It's on. It's about to be up, bro. Watch me in the next couple of years. It's about to be up.
I'm like to be a part of this journey, man. It's a rocket ship.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate your time. I know it's late where you at. My son just woke up, so it's time to transition. I appreciate you, bro. Stay in touch, man. Tell mom and dad I said hello. I'll at you, bro. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you too. And I'm looking forward to hearing this all in one go when it's ready to go. So thank you for having
Oh
me, man.
yeah,
It was great.
I'm gonna share the snippets with you. So what I'll do is I'll tag you some shorts, reposted everything. And when you get a chance, man, send me your address. I'm gonna send you something gift for joining me. I appreciate you.
Love that, man. Appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, man. We'll take care of our guests here.
All right, what's the
All right, man. Talk to you soon. All right, you too. Bye.